Let us join in singing Angels We Have Heard Up on High, that ancient chorus, number 238. And we will be singing verses 1, 2, and 3. Through the years, in sermons and songs, in drama, there has been much made about the conditions that were surrounding Jesus' birth. And the images that usually convey that quickly come to our mind are the nativity sets that we have in our homes. They are beautiful and polished, much like the one I saw this afternoon that was in intricate detail. Absolutely magnificent the way it looked. Oh, everything just looks soft and snuggly. But in those, usually, like the one I saw this afternoon, there is straw that is placed in the manger. And we tend to put that straw out there because, again, we think it's going to be soft and snuggly and it conveys that impression. But animals don't eat straw. They eat hay. And I grew up on a farm, and this is what you put in the manger for the animals to eat. And it is not soft, and it is not snuggly at all. But it is very prickly. And when you even begin to put it in the manger, you put on your work gloves when that you are touching it. So Jesus was not placed on something that was very soft. I read one sermon that a preacher wrote, preacher like me, but he said that it was a blessing that Jesus was born in a stable. And his reasoning went that there were so many people that had come into Bethlehem for the census that every inn and every place was so crowded that because of that, there would have been lots of germs that would come from all of those people. So Jesus was being protected from the germs by being born in a stable. That was God's means of keeping him well. Well, it's like this. When I read that, I was just absolutely astounded. And I thought, that preacher must come from the center of New York City. And he hasn't been much further. Because frankly, if you've been on a farm, you know it would take an extremely filthy hotel with lots of sick people in it to rival the germs that would be in a stable. I mean, besides, if God wanted to sterilize where Jesus was born, wouldn't it have happened? I mean, God could have chosen for Jesus to come in a 5-star hotel. He could have raised one up. Or he could have chosen for him to come in a palatial home. But God didn't do that. God chose for him to come in a stable. And stables are unsanitary, and they are smelly, because the animals that live there aren't like cats. They have not learned to go and use a litter box. And the farmer doesn't clean out the stable every day. But it's cleaned out once or twice a year. And by springtime, I mean that is nose-holding time, when they begin to clean it out. I mean, I smell that. When that we, in the springtime here, because we live in farm territory, and I know exactly what the farmers are doing certain times of the year as that I come into the office. But the entire point of this is that Jesus was not born into a sweet, smelling, baby, soft, and clean, sterile environment. He was born into a very smelly situation. But it wasn't the smell of the stables that God was most concerned about. What God was most concerned about, and what he thought was the worst, was the stench that was rising up from heaven to heaven because of sin. That's what upset God. And the sin was piling up on itself, layer upon layer. And it was there because of the griping and grumbling and the poor attitudes. Because of broken relationships, because of poverty and injustice, and we could go on and on. But the stench to God was terrible. And he didn't want that to escalate. He didn't want it to become as different as it was during the time of Noah, when all was evil and just smelled to high heaven. During Noah's lifetime, there was not a sweet smelling savor to God coming up from the earth except by one man, and that was Noah. And that was pleasing to God. So God came. God came, Emmanuel, among us, and was born in a smelly stable in order to do something about the smelly situation that was here on the earth. He came so we could clean up the stench of sin in our lives. All the smelly places of life are always where we find Emmanuel, God with us. And I think that's because we pay more attention to God and focus more on God in those times. rather than the times when everything is going along so pleasantly in our lives. But God is more plainly seen in those smelly places as perhaps the message that God wanted to give us. The reason that Jesus was born in the stench of a stable. I mean, think about it. Here we had God come to the earth, born in a stinky stable, born to an unwed mother, born to a couple that were so marginalized that there wasn't even any room for them in the inn. I mean, they were surrounded by people who did not have any idea of their significance. Emmanuel, God with us, not just in the nice times, and we can celebrate that. Because there isn't a person here who hasn't had those times in their life when things just stink. And we need God. And God is there with us to take us by the hand and to walk with us through all that time, through all of our failures, through all of our poverty of spirituality, through all of our weaknesses and fears, as well as those times when we are sailing high on top of the world, those sweet-smelling times in our life. Emmanuel, God with us, the one who comes to us and offers change, the one who comes to us and offers transformation, the one who comes to us and offers power for living, so that we can live a righteous and a just life, filled with the love of God and love of neighbor, spreading through our lives a very pleasing odor to God. Emmanuel, God with us, right here, right now. Not just still lying in a stable in a manger, but here and now. And that's what we celebrate. Amen.
God's incalculable gift to us, to you, His Son Jesus, our Savior. For a moment the air was fresh and clean, but now it is our turn to help stomp out the stench. Ushers, let us return to God. Please give to us. hear now from the Gospel according to John, the first chapter, verses 3 to 5 and 10 to 14. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world knew him not. He came to his own home, and his own people received him not. But to all who do receive him, who believe in his name, he gives power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. We have beheld his glory, glory as of the one Son from the Father.
I'd like to give you some instructions on our candle lighting before we begin our sharing of Christ's life. The ushers will light the candle of the person at the end of each pew. And I ask that you do not tilt your candles once they are lit, and that you pull them down so they can be in the little hurricane holder that is around them. But when you light your candle, you light it and then hold it up so that children have the little lights that I can see most of them have. And if you do not have a candle, if you will raise your hand, or if your child does not have one of the lights, we will be glad to give you one now. At the end of the candle lighting service, after we have sung Joy to the World, I ask that you please extinguish your candle before you leave the pew. This is a requirement from our fire department. And as you leave, there will be a metal container in the back. And if you will hand your candle to the person, our ushers, and allow them to put it directly in that metal container. And this will also help us to comply with the regulations that we need to follow in order to have this service. So now Jerry is going to play as we continue, and as the candles are lit, and after everyone's candle is lit, ask we will stand, and as you light your candles, and then we will, that's the day. Celebration of Christ being the light of the world. Let us stand and sing Silent Night. let's join in singing Joy to the World.